My name is Brandon Cordover, and this is behind the wheel of my 1995 F355 Berlinetta. What I love about the car is just the analog feel. The sound it makes is incredible, and nothing gives the experience of driving this car to me, and I don't think anything will. I was born in New York, and when I was 10 months old, my family moved to Scottsdale, Arizona. And when I was 15, we finally made the move out to Newport. We had come and visited every summer, and the dream was always to live out here. Met my now wife in high school, and we've been together ever since, and now we have 3 little kids. So there were 2 big influences in my life. So the first would be my dad. My dad was a car guy. You know, growing up, my dad didn't have a lot of money. When he was young, he started a business and was very successful in New York. And, you know, as a young guy making a lot of money, and what did he do? He started buying cars. He had everything. You know, he's had a Jaguar EXKE, a Ferrari 308, Euro BMW M6, and lots of other cars. And through him, my older brother got very into cars. And the reason that my brother, I think, was a large influence on me is my brother was always into modifying cars. Whereas my dad always left everything stock and appreciated cars. My brother liked to kind of take a car and make it in his image. My first car was a 1996 318 Ti. M-Tech. I found it on eBay. I wasn't even driving at the time. I showed it to my parents, like, this is the car I want. They helped me buy it, and the car sat. After I got the car, I didn't have my license yet, and I would just sit there and wax and clean the car over and over and like just idolize it. But my parents decided that they didn't want me driving a manual car. So they actually made me sell it, and I ended up with a Mercedes C-Class. And I was also influenced by what was happening in Japan. There was a style called VIP, which was really about making your car very low with body kits and really just exaggerate the stance on the car and really just make it stand out. So after school in the summers, I would work all I could. I would, you know, wash cars, detail cars. I worked in summer camps, and I would just pull my money together, and every little bit I get, I would just put into my car. Yeah, I mean, car forums were starting to get really popular when I was in high school, and particularly with my C-Class. I was on a car forum called Club 202, which were all guys that had W202 C-Classes like I had. So it was really neat to kind of see what other people were doing. And, you know, there were local people, but then there were people all over the world. And that was that first kind of exposure to seeing what everyone else around the world was doing and being able to interact with them directly. You know, car forums were really instrumental to kind of allowing me to be creative early on and see what I liked and what I didn't like about other builds. And through that, I certainly met a lot of my good friends that I still have to this day. So I had my C-Class, and I kind of built it up, and I loved that car to death. I had an opportunity to basically jump into a really significant upgrade, which was my dad had a Mercedes CL55, and he was looking to get rid of it. It was too expensive to maintain. The biggest problem with that car is its factory hydraulic suspension. So I thought it perfect, because I like to modify suspension. I could take the Achilles heel of that car and kind of rectify it and do something different. But it didn't quite give me what I was looking for. I was still on the hunt for what to me was kind of the perfect vehicle, and I didn't know what that was yet. I have a lot of great memories of the 355, but it wasn't even attainable or anything I even considered. It was so outside the realm of possibility for me at that point. So I was really just trying to work with what I had, which so at the time was the CL55, kind of modifying that as I liked. And I definitely took a lot of evolutionary steps to get to this car. One of the biggest steps that I would say I took was actually acquiring a 986 Boxster, which was a 5-speed manual. That was the first 5-speed manual that I actually got to drive on the streets, and really opened me up to what a mid-engine sports car with a manual transmission is, and really changed the definition of what an experience with the vehicle was. Because before that, it was purely cosmetic with me. It was how good can I make the car look? But now I can look at how did it actually feel to drive the car. My brother actually was perusing eBay Motors, and he said, look at this, there's a 355 for sale, and it's actually a fairly reasonable price. And so we looked at it, and it seemed too good to be true. But it seemed like, oh, I should pursue this. This is my opportunity to really step into like an exotic vehicle that was attainable at the time. So I reached out to the seller. He was based in Vegas, and he was actually coming out here to purchase another vehicle. So he agreed to trailer the car out here, which made it that much more perfect. So I saw the car, and it definitely wasn't perfect. And I definitely saw that there were some issues with it. But through negotiation, I was able to pick it up for, in my mind, was the deal of the century. And so that was kind of my initial start into a very long journey. When I first acquired the car, I knew that there were some hidden things with it. The guy was really desperate to sell it, and I knew I was kind of walking into a gamble, but it seemed to me a gamble worth doing based on the price. And so I acquired the car, and right away it had a small oil leak. So I thought, okay, well, I better go get this checked out and just get the car overall checked out. They did a PPI on the car, and he basically said, yeah, unfortunately, your oil leak is actually coming from the head gasket. He said we should do a compression test. And so after a compression test, they said, yeah, 2 of your cylinders are low compression. We now need to kind of pull the heads off to see what we're getting into. And just as they were pulling the heads off, COVID happened. And so Italy was completely shut down. My car sat there for months untouched because there were no parts. But long story short, the car needed a full motor rebuild. It was definitely the worst case scenario of what could have been. But of course, in retrospect, the prices of these shot up incredibly after. So I really bought it just at the right time. If I were to go today, it would have been outside of the realm of possibility for me. I do like to work on cars, but I like to do kind of small things. I definitely am a believer and go to the expert when it's something you don't know. Particularly with a Ferrari, you know, with all of the intricacies around the motor. I was very limited in what I was going to do engine-wise to the car myself. I'm very lucky I found Mark. He was basically rebuilt the motor from the ground up. I was able to get a 2-year warranty, which there's no other 355 in the world, I think, that has a warranty on the motor, but it's been running amazing, and yeah, I've been incredibly happy with it. A reason a lot of people don't even consider these cars is because they're scared by the maintenance. And I can understand that. You hear a lot of horror stories. I have a horror story even. Hoovy had a horror story. There's lots of instances where there are very expensive issues with these cars. But having known what I know now, I would say this: if you're really interested in this car, there's nothing like it. Nothing is gonna give you the driving experience or the feel. Anyone who owns these cars can attest to that. So if you're seriously considering one, I highly recommend getting a pre-purchase inspection, which includes a compression test as well as a leak down test. If you do those 2 items, then you're great. Enjoy the car, drive it. Now, a lot of people don't want to get these as well because they require engine out services, meaning that in order to do a belt service, you actually have to drop the motor completely to perform that work, which is expensive. But there's a lot of misconceptions out there about how often this work actually needs to get done. In reality, you can go 5, 7 years or beyond, especially if you don't use the factory tensioner bearings, which are a known issue on the car. The reason you do the belt service is actually not to replace the belts, but because of the tensioner bearing, because if that goes, then the motor goes. So if you amortize the cost of an engine out service along with some of the other work you're gonna do, you know, budget about $15,000 to $20,000. But if you amortize that over 5 to 7 years, it's actually not that bad. You know, 10 years ago, there was quite a bit of aftermarket support for the vehicle. These days, there's very little. I think that's kind of changing a little bit because the demand for the car is so strong now that you're starting to see some people appreciate and grow the aftermarket community. In reality, I look every day on Yahoo Japan, eBay Motors, just looking for my little Easter eggs. And that's kind of part of the fun of the car, is the hunt. You know, for me, my dream car, the car I've always lusted after my entire life, was a Ferrari F50. Since I was 7 years old and I saw it for the first time, that I told myself one day I will have that car. And so getting into this in my mind was kind of it was a baby F50, right? So that was kind of the inspiration behind the build for it, was to create a baby F50. But really what I love about the car is just the analog feel. The sound it makes is incredible, and nothing gives the experience of driving this car to me, and I don't think anything will. Until I can afford an F50 one day, this will be the car that I own. The one thing I love about this car is its 100% drama. Everything about it, whether visual drama, whether emotional drama of actually driving the vehicle. There's nothing about it that's boring and ordinary. And it's quirky. Italian cars are quirky. Sometimes things don't work the way they're supposed to, and that's normal. That's Italian car ownership. Don't expect Porsche build quality in your Ferrari. That's not the case, right? If you want something that really feels emotional and makes you feel like you're in something special, this car will give you that. It definitely is an experience getting into the car, whether it's first just even stepping into it. It's not an easy car to get into, especially with the Recaro seats, or it's so low that it's not an easy car to necessarily navigate everywhere. But all those things kind of add to the drama and the fun of the car. One pilgrimage that I love doing every year is driving the car up to Car Week in Carmel, Monterey. I go with a few friends, they're driving their cars and we make the trek up. Certainly don't mind just taking the car out on the weekend myself just to go out and enjoy it. I love being with people too, but for me, it's my time to unwind, between work, 3 young kids, life. It's just kind of my time to unwind, unload, and just kind of have my one-on-one time with the car. This is not the most heavily modified vehicle I've ever owned. This is certainly the most enjoyable vehicle I've ever owned. Any opportunity I can, I want to get in and drive, and I don't care where. It's just the ability to go out and really get that special experience. And I think that's what makes it so special to me and why I really don't see myself owning another car. Besides my dream. So there's certain things that I won't do with the car personally. Like I don't want to track the car. Cars get pretty beat up on the track. And just for me personally, like driving on the street is what gives me pleasure. This car is about getting that kind of old world analog feel. And so, look, I've certainly done a lot of aftermarket parts to enhance the performance, whether it was the HRE wheels with the Michelin tires, the Nitron coilovers, the Brembo brakes, all of the exhaust modifications. But in today's world, there's cars that are much faster. There's cars that handle a lot better. I enjoy driving it, and I drive it to about 75 to 80% of its limit. I don't want to push it to 100 because that's when you can end up with something problematic. It is an undeniably beautiful car. And I think that's something that's pretty universal. So whether people love the car or hate the car, they will say it's a beautiful car. I joined Ferrari Chat first, which was kind of the largest online community of Ferrari owners. I wasn't sure at first what to really expect. You hear a certain stigma about Ferrari owners. I didn't find that at all. The people that own these cars, they really are passionate about them. They're not getting them to draw a lot of attention. You may see that with a lot of new owners of, let's say, like F8 or F12, cars that are a little newer and flashier. The people that own these are really passionate about them, and they own them because they love them. Being in Southern California, you are in the place for car culture. And so you meet people from all walks of life, all passionate car owners, and I've definitely found a very strong community being here. I didn't buy the car because I wanted to tell people I have a Ferrari. It just checked the boxes of what I was searching for like an analog performance car. If you tell people you drive a Ferrari, they are automatically give you a look, whether they enjoy it or not. A lot of people just see it as a status item, which I don't. As I kind of alluded to before, I think the people that own these cars own them because they love them. There's a lot flashier, newer cars that I think would get the attention that people are seeking. That being said, this is the first car I've ever owned where when I'm out driving it, I constantly get people stopping me. Pretty much every stoplight, I have the person next to me talk, oh, what is that? What year is it? Oh, I love those. That's my favorite model. Oh, is it a manual? Oh, great. I was making sure it wasn't an F1. There's a lot of people that love and are passionate about these cars, and it definitely does give some attention, a little more than I probably would like. This car is definitely, it's a pay-to-play car, meaning don't expect to own one of these and never have to put money into them. There's always little things that are breaking or need attention, and that's part of the ownership experience. Don't expect that you're going to own a vehicle like this and not have things such as engine out services, which are a reality. And you should appreciate the fact that they are cars that need to be driven. One of the reasons people have issues with these cars is because they don't drive them. But at the end of the day, these are road cars that are derived from Formula One technology. And this is ostensibly a race engine. And so you have to drive the car. You have to get out and enjoy it. You have to put the time and effort into properly maintaining it, driving it right, letting it warm up fully, and then actually taking it to redline. Like the car needs the Italian tune-up with every drive. If you are passionate about ownership and you're willing to spend some money on maintenance and you're looking for an experience unlike anything you can acquire today that's new, this is the car for you.